Hello everybody, welcome to Also Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k on this channel by the end of the year, so your subscription would be much appreciated. This video is pre-recorded. I'm in Los Angeles at the time you are seeing this, so that's why I'm wearing the same outfit. Anyways, I wanted to do a video talking about what I believe to be the most underrated free agents going into 2021. One of the things that I like about this channel is that video topics like this that I am actually genuinely interested in, that I just wouldn't do on my main channel, I can actually do here. Because the thing is, a video like this probably doesn't do that well. I mean, cut to when this video actually does extremely well for no reason, but typically it wouldn't. But this is the kind of topic that I actually genuinely want to talk about, so I'm actually able to do it with this channel now, so that's awesome. So I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 names here of different free agents that are going into 2021 that I wanted to talk about. Almost all of these guys are like minimum contract players, but they're like all players that I believe will be like rotation on good team players. So it's almost weird where there are some players, like one of the names on here is Jeff Green, because Jeff Green is always underappreciated, where they're good and big rotation players in the playoffs, but they just don't get the money like it. They're like journeymen and stuff like that. So that's unfortunate, but like a lot of the names here are pretty much going to be minimum contract level players. So first things first, the one name on this team that's definitely, or on this team, the one name among here that's easily not a minimum contract guy will be Demar Derozan. Now, I know it's kind of weird to say that someone as good as Demar Derozan is an underrated free agent, but Demar is also just underrated in general. So I feel like that contributes to him also being an underrated free agent, because he is one of the best free agents available and no one really gives a shit. Like, the only reason DeMar DeRozan is talked about in terms of his free agency is just based on the possibility of him going to the Lakers. Otherwise, no one gives a single shit about DeMar DeRozan and his free agency. But my opinion of DeMar and how I feel about, like, for example, the Bulls were actually connected to DeMar DeRozan potentially being the piece they add this offseason. DeMar as a player is better now than he was a couple of years ago, even if he's scoring less, to me, because his playmaking has taken just such a significant leap. He's like an 18-point per game scorer at this point, but he's also like an 8 assist per game guy. The guy's playmaking had already been better on the Spurs than it was on the Raptors, though it was progressing over on the Raptors. But this year in particular, he has taken such a big leap where he is just a fantastic playmaker. And yeah, the lack of a 3-ball hurts. Yeah, the fact that he's not a great defensive player hurts. But playmaking is important, and a guy who will be a great scorer within the 3-point line while being one of the better playmakers in the league. That is a valuable player. He's worth like $20 million a year. If he's going to the Lakers, he might not get that. It would be a sign and trade regardless, but he might not get the amount of money that he's really worth if he's trying to go on a contender or something like that. But he is definitely a good player and one of the better free agents available. After that, there's like a steep drop off in the names. Patty Mills. I don't feel like people talk about Patty Mills like ever, but he is one of the best backup point guards in the league. People were talking about Patty Mills all day, every day, back in like 2013, 2014, when the Spurs were at their peak and he was a big part of their depth and all that stuff. Not the Spurs at their absolute peak, but, you know, the Spurs as like a team and not just Tim Duncan. But Patty Mills was a big part of their bench unit and one of the guys who he hit multiple big shots for them, but he's still kind of like that, and he's still one of the best backup point guards in the league. He still is like weirdly clutch, and if you can have Patty Mills as a backup point guard, every team in the league should be interested in that. So he's probably, I don't actually know for sure that he'll stick with the Spurs, just because the Spurs, like, he's been under contract since Kawhi was there, and now they're kind of in the decline, so maybe he'll jump ship now, but I would guess that he stays with the Spurs just because he seems kind of like a Spurs lifer, maybe. But yeah, he is potentially a free agent that'll be leaving, and if he does, he'll be good. I got to speed this up because we're already 6 minutes in, and I am I'm only down to 2 out of the 12 names. Otto Porter Jr. was traded to the Magic in the Vucevic trade as salary filler, but if he can get healthy, he can be a really, really good 3-and-D player, and he's probably not going to cost more than like $5 million in free agency, which he's fallen far because of injury and inconsistency. He wasn't even really that good when he played because of injury, but if he's in NBA shape, if he's not being out, if he's not, only playing 20% of the games, then he could be a very valuable role player to a contending team. Tony Snell, I feel like, isn't given enough credit for the season that he just had. Like, I didn't understand at all why, for example, like Solomon Hill was getting minutes for the Hawks last year when they could have just given those minutes to Tony Snell, who is a significantly better three-point shooter and pretty much on the same tier as a defensive player. He is going to be cheap, and he's going to be a decent, not even decent, he's going to be a good 3-and-D player, and it just seems that he's valued lower than he should be. So whoever gets him, I think, will be getting a steal. Jamichael Green is probably going to get like $8 to $10 million a year, so he's not quite in the minimum tier like pretty much everybody that's left here. But he is a really, really good three-point shooter, has some ability creating offense within the three-point line, decent at like rebound, put back, has a mid-range game that they don't really go too much, but he does have it. And then he's a really good defensive player. So just like a really good 3-and-D power forward, which there's not that many of them. So take him when you can get him. Jeff Green has been one of the best rotation players or role players on contending teams since he's been on the Rockets and doesn't get credit for it at all. But he was fantastic on the Rockets. He was fantastic on the Nets. He was pretty damn good on the Cavaliers as well before that. So if you're a contending team and you can get Jeff Green for like no money, do that. I think it's within the Nets' interest to like actually pay Jeff Green real money and not a minimum contract, because he was so good for them at the center position this year. Like as a small ball five, as a three-point shooter, as a guy who can sometimes create his own offense, and then decent defensively. Jeff Green is awesome, and I don't understand why people are not aware how awesome Jeff Green is. So sign Jeff Green if you're a contender. Nicholas Batum of the Los Angeles Clippers was fantastic at the 4 spot this year as a 3-and-D player. I'm noticing a trend that most of these are 3-and-D players, but the rest of these are actually mostly centers from here, except for one. But Nick Batum, he shoots like 2 times a game, but he's a decent 3-point shooter, and he plays defense, and he does the little things, and he's kind of a glue guy. So bring him in for no money at all to be a guy who can easily play 25-plus minutes a game in the playoffs. After that is a deep cut here. We have Taj Gibson, who was like barely in the NBA this season. He got a contract like mid-season from the Knicks, and then he ended up being like the second most consistent player for the Knicks in the playoffs. So the dude's like 36, but he's still a good defensive player, a good finisher at the basket, and he has a mid-range shot that like he'll never use because that's not what you do in 2021, but definitely a pretty solid backup center. Langston Galloway is a guard. He's the last guard here, and then the next 3 are centers. Langston Galloway is a really good 3-point shooter who can pretty much just go in the game, be a hot a spark plug. What is it called? A microwave? I feel like I haven't heard anyone call anybody that in a long time. But he'll catch fire and hit a couple of threes for you, and then he doesn't play any defense, and he can't really play make, but respectable. Not even really. He passes the mark enough to where he's not a god-awful defender or playmaker or anything like that. And then he is just a fantastic shooter. So I think he can be a rotation player. Was kind of cut out of the rotation with the Suns, but I think there are plenty of teams that could use someone like Langston Galloway, like, let's say, the Lakers, for example. Gorgie Dieng. I don't know if it's Jiang or Dieng or whatever it is, but Gorgie is Gorgie. I should really like look up how to pronounce these names before. Well, I've said his name a million times now, but whatever. He is a very solid center. He is pretty good defensively, and then he has a 3-ball. He actually, before he got bought out, had one of the best 3-point percentages in the league. Let me find it. I think he shot like 55. Or no, he was shooting 48% from 3 on 2.2 attempts a game on the Memphis Grizzlies. I don't know if he got bought out or what the deal was with his contract, but yeah, he was shooting extremely well from three. He only shot 32% with the Spurs in the last 16 games of the season, but that was fine. And he's just genuinely a pretty good stretch five and decent defensively. I feel like he should be valued more than he is. Dwayne Dedmon, kind of the same thing. Not as good of a three-point shooter, I don't think, but once again, just a defensive big man who can shoot the ball. And then last but not least is actually a player who reminds me of Taj Gibson, Kem Birch, who is a little bit bigger, but basically a center who is just run, jump, and dunk, and he gets the job done in those areas. Sorry about all the cuts in this video. I just ate food right before this, and I had to burp a lot, and I don't think you want to hear that. So that's why there was cuts in a channel that there's not supposed to be any editing in. But yeah, those were my most underrated free agents. Going down the list once more just to make it clear: Demar Derozan, Otto Porter Jr., Patrick Mills, Tony Snell, Jamichael Green, Jeff Green, Nicholas Batum, Taj Gibson, Langston Galloway, Gorgie Jang, Dwayne Dedmon, Kem Birch. All right, that's the video. Goodbye.